I am your host, Joe JDF Foster, and welcome to another episode. And today's topic will be the Naked Gun movie franchise. And this film franchise ran from 1988 to 1994, only 3 movies. But it's based off of a 12-year running series, which starred the same actor who played the main star in the movies. The show was called Police Squad, and it starred Leslie Nielsen. Many of you younger ones will remember him from the movies Scary Movie 3 and from certain other minor things that have come out. But for those of us in the older generation, we remember him from everything from the original Airplane movie all the way up until the present. Oh, and another thing you got that the younger ones might remember him for, a movie called Superhero Movie. But basically, anything that came after the Scary Movie 1 and 2 were done. 3 on, you could probably find Nelson in some way in that response. As I said, this film franchise was started due to two brothers wanting to do a film series that followed the Police Squad TV series, just in their own version of it. To me, Police Squad and The Naked Gun both to be seen as parodies of police shows or of the police. Much like MASH was a parody of the military, and Hogan's Heroes did the same for it. It's how they're done. Because the idea was to make people laugh in some way. And when they came up with the movies originally, the idea was going to be to call them Police Squad or Files from the Police Squad. But they thought this may cause confusion, as one of the brothers had actually worked on the other movies that were at this time called Police Academy. They thought it would cause confusion between the viewers that would go to see these movies. They didn't want them getting them mixed up, so they basically had everything they could think of thrown into a hat, and that others came up with, and went with what sounded good. And Police Squad became The Naked Gun. The main star for these films is Leslie Nielsen's character, known as Frank Drebin, who's a detective who gets his man, so to speak, and and he solves the crime. Well, the thing is, with the way Leslie Nielsen played the character, whether it was intentional or not, the character reminded me a lot of the Pink Panthers' Inspector Clouseau, who he was actually very smart, but you would swear he was the dumbest or worst person to be an inspector or detective. Or, in Drebin's case, a lieutenant. In 1988, there were 3 movies that involved the villain getting run over by a steamroller. And this one was one of them. The other 2, A Fish Called Wanda, and That Lovable Rabbit with Christopher Lloyd, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And the opening credits for this movie were, well, at least in my view, I know to some extent they did because of the way it was done, but the way that the opening credits for this movie were later parodied in a Family Guy episode, where it had Stewie do the whole opening act against the terrorists, and then riding his little three-wheeler down following the police from the police squad's view in the opening credits. Well, as he was riding, it shows different scenes, different areas, and things happening. But at the end of it, in the Family Guy version, he runs over a guy, and his father, Peter, comes out and says hi, Stewie, and then notices the dead guy and goes, oh, in surprise. Also, during the movie this is going to be a spoiler alert. So before I go ahead, I want you to skip ahead in this a little bit if you don't want this. But it has him portraying an umpire when they're trying to stop a crime from happening. They're trying to stop the main crime from happening. Well, during this time as the umpire, Leslie Nielsen's character gets hit in the face with a baseball bat by the batter. The gag was actually put in by Mel Brooks himself, and they kept the suggestion. And it also shows that, okay, now back to this. There's a baseball blooper reel before that, however, that's shown. And it shows different scenes of things happening, like amazing catches or blown catches, pretty much anything it can. Well, there's a parody where it shows a guy going up against a fence and his head gets split and gets decapitated from it. This is actually based off of a real-life event that happened to a Padres player where he didn't get decapitated, but he might as well have with the way things went. As he went back to the wall to get the ball, to make a catch, but he ended up hitting the wall with his head, and when he did, the ball hit the ground and rolled, and before he could pick it up, it cost the Padres the game. And the umpire actually stated, Winfield goes back to the wall. He hits his head on the wall and it rolls off. It rolls all the way back to second base. This is a terrible thing for the Padres. Also in the film, while it says Angels, they're not actually at the Angels field. And you can call the Angels what you want, whether it's California, the California Angels of Anaheim, or the Anaheim Angels of California, or whichever way you look at them. At this time, I think they were actually just called the California Angels. And the thing is, they were in Dodger Stadium. Well, they did actually used to play at Dodger Stadium. But they quit calling Dodger Stadium home in '65, and until the movie didn't get to have it as their home. Again, when this film happened, that's the stadium they chose to be used as Angel Field. This movie also was and O.J. Simpson's actually in all three movies as the partner, but he's actually brought in as a replacement version of the original character that was actually in the series. Because this was something I didn't know. 3 members of the main cast are actually from the TV series, while the others were all replacements that were brought in. And O.J. Simpson's character in it is the partner Nordberg, But also in it, Nordberg's name is spelled different from the TV show. This could be to avoid having to pay money for it, or this might actually just be a nice change so that you can claim it's a completely different character. Though it's known that it is based on that character to everybody else. And the terrorist organization at the beginning that I was talking about, in Family Guy it says Dewey beat him up, and this one Frank beats him up before he has his big fall and it does the opening credits, is actually a reference to Bond films with the group known as Spectre, which was the group that was trying to kill Bond and take over the world all the time. And they just had a different take on it. Also, our main villain for this film is Ricardo Montalban. He actually got this role due to being the antagonist, Khan, in the movie Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And I'll do my overall impressions at the end of this, or near the end. And I'm just going to move on to the next thing. And on to the next film. The Naked Gun 2.5. The Smell of Fear. Well, actually, you know what? Actually, yeah. We can do this. Sorry. Okay, and also at the time the Zuckers did Scary Movie 3, 4, and 5, they had actually been thinking of doing a fourth installment to the series known as Naked Gun 444.4, but instead the writer, the Zucker that was doing the movies at the time and did the Scary Movies, actually opted to do the Scary Movies instead, which in my view could have went either. I mean, makes it look like he should have went ahead and tried to do another one of these. But it's also been openly admitted that they originally planned for this one to be a trilogy so that Nilsson could retire from the role of Frank Drebin. So it only seems fair they don't make another film. And another thing about it is it would have given him a female sidekick instead of the current Nordberg, which was O.J. Simpson's character. And my reasonings on how I felt about it is that pretty sure even for the time they came out, a lot of jokes and the plot were recycled and overused in this film. It wasn't like anything special. You could go and watch the movie Airplane, wouldn't have noticed much difference. And the movie overall was funny with its delivery of its jokes, but again, due to them being recycled and overused, and there wasn't much variety in it, which made the movie seem long and made it seem like it was long in length at times. It almost put me to sleep, which is not a good thing in my view. So while it gets a passing grade, I can't give it a really great one. I give it a C+. Now on to The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. This movie came out in 1991. Okay, the opening credits for this one, while they changed, as they did with all three, for what they used in them, this one was interesting because the opening credits end with Zsa Zsa Gabor. Ask your parents about a TV show called Green Acres, if you don't know what that is. And if your parents don't know, then ask your grandparents, because one of them is bound to know. I'm almost willing to bet on it. And how Zsa Zsa fits into it. But anyways, the opening credits to this one actually end with her slapping the police siren and making a comment about how this happens every time she goes shopping. Well, this is actually a parody of what happened to her in real life. As she got pulled over one day, and during the course of the events, she got angry and slapped a cop. She did get charged, and she also got charged because, she also got in trouble because she was driving on an expired license. But no prison time, nothing major. So that's a good thing. Another thing about it is Priscilla Presley, who plays Jane Spencer in the franchise, and George Kennedy, who plays Frank's boss, Ed, or his friend, I ain't really sure on what that one is, were both on a TV show that ran from 78 to 91, known as, or sometime in the early 90s. I know it was 77 to something, although I might be a little bit late on the listing, and it actually came out a little earlier. So don't quote me on those dates to be exact. But I got 78 to 91 at least. But they were both on the TV show that ran from that time, known as Dallas. But they were on it at different times. Priscilla was on it from 83 to 88. And she actually left the series to do the Naked Gun movies. George Kennedy, he was on the show as a character named Carter McKay, which ran from 88 to 91. Which means he came in after Priscilla left, but at the same time, they were both in the Naked Gun movies together. During a scene in it, when it goes to like a flashback type deal, it shows them in what's come to be known as the Loser's Bar, or as it's actually titled in the movie, the Blue Note Bar. Well, in the background, it's got pictures of things. It's got some pictures in the background. These pictures are the Hindenburg, the Lusitania, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the Ford Edsel and DeLorean DMC-12, and the Hubble Space Telescope. The thing these things all share is that during the time they happened, they were considered failures or big disasters in some way. And one thing I find interesting is that the Hubble telescope was actually listed among the disaster, considered a failure or a disaster at the time the movie came out. With as much as it's actually helped us with knowledge of outer space. And the DeLorean, I wouldn't list it as a disaster. The problem was, it was so well made and basically told everybody to buck the traditional automotive system, where they just turned car after car out. These things were almost basically handmade cars, so you got quality, but they were built so well that they took time to build them. And unfortunately, the company got in some serious trouble. And because of the trouble the company got in, the owner got in even more trouble, as he got caught running drugs at one point. 24 kilos of one, actually. there's even a song that, as I talked about in one of my previous songs, in my previous posts, that talks about how it dealt with racial injustice. Talking about a little kid of color got in trouble. He ended up causing more trouble by that standard. But when the white man did it, he basically got away scot-free, just paying a little fine. Well, it turns out the man they're talking about in it, it's based on DeLorean's case. Also, there's a scene in the film where it parodies the ghost love scene that's become so well known throughout the world and over time since it happened between Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. On this one, it's our main stars, Priscilla and Leslie Nielsen. Well, one of the reasons this could have been used is because because while David Zucker directed this one, his brother Jerry directed Ghost, and since they're working together, bringing it in could be in his choice and him actually getting away with it because it's his right. And it was very well done. Okay. There's also a Twilight Zone reference done in this movie. And again, spoiler alert here, during the big scene in this film, it has a man in the crowd who holds a book that says "Disturbed Man." This is actually the actor from that episode parodying the scene in that same episode, known as "Disturbed Man." He's actually the man who was going in the episode. He's the man who was going to get on one of these spaceships from when aliens arrive. Supposed to be helping man, giving them like all this stuff, and it actually does. Well, then there are people who decide to go visit, and they don't come back. So it makes things questionable. But then it's later on, as they keep going, well, there's somebody there who's actually trying to translate their book that they've left on Earth. And as they translate it, they find out more and more. Well, eventually it's revealed this book they got that's called Disturbed Man is in fact, as the character would say, they'd have a woman say it in the Twilight Zone episode, but the man who was on the ship and who now plays a man carrying the book chants the same lines. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. It's a reference to how the book, how it was, in fact, exactly that, a way to cook humans. Also, there's a scene in this that features Weird Al Yankovic, in which this is the second movie for him to have appeared in the series, and he appeared in all three. Well, during a scene in this one, he actually doesn't portray himself, but instead plays a different character. He plays a minor character. He comes out basically trying to rob the place. Well, during the scene, Frank is supposed to hit him with this door. Well, it took him 16 tries to shoot this thing. Eventually, Weird Al noticed that his leg was starting to turn purple, and the people offered him padding for his leg so that they could do the shoot. Well, one thing Weird Al remembers about it is that O.J. Simpson felt bad for him. Which tells you it must have been bad because O.J. was used to getting hit a lot, as him having been a football player, even if it had been a while. He got used to people hitting him, and even he thought it was bad. Even he felt sorry for the guy. And on to my review for this. Now, with this one, the jokes weren't overused as they had been in the previous one. And they're not as aged as much as the first one was either. They were still old. And the movie had its areas this time where it seemed to be longer. Or feel like it. So it would draw your attention from it. But another thing, like I said, with the jokes not being overused or aged as much as the first film had them, was like, that actually made it more interesting with the jokes being done. And the way that, and the delivery time was just as good. And this one, I actually gave a B-. And now for the final film in the franchise, 1994's Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult. Weird Al returns as himself in this film. But and he also comes back into it with Vanna White this time as part of the plot. Well, as a scene in the plot, basically. Anyways, Weird Al returns as himself for this film. But it is not the last time he would be involved in a Leslie Nielsen movie. In 2 years' time, a movie called Spy Hard would come out. He would do the opening credits, and he would do the opening credits for it. And it's weird opening, but it's a James Bond style film that he's doing it for, so it makes sense. Another thing about it is that during a fight scene that they have in the film, they actually had real biker gangs hired for this. Well, it turns out 4 of the biker gangs involved were rivals. But to prove that humanity does exist, no incidents, troubles, anything like that actually occurred during the shooting of it. This was also O.J. Simpson's final film role, and he won a Golden Raspberry for supporting actor. The next year would, of course, be when his trial occurred. In the credits, there is a credit for the weapon handler, and then there is one for the concealed weapon handler. The name of the concealed handler is the guy who actually assassinated President McKinley in 1901 in Buffalo, New York. An interesting side note, a video by Isaac Green that I saw that was from the NFL Network episode they did about the top 10 football curses, teams that believe they're cursed in some way, reveals that Buffalo actually believes that the McKinley assassination is the reason they haven't won a Super Bowl. That because he got assassinated, it actually condemned them. If that's true, how come Dallas and Washington, D.C. haven't had the same problems? My theory was the reason why Dallas didn't have it is because they got Tony Romo as a punishment anyways. They got him at one point as a punishment. And Washington Redskins, they have enough troubles as it is. But yeah, I think the Cowboys got punished with Romo. So before that, they had the quarterback who could actually do stuff for them, and they won Super Bowls. I was not a fan. Also, at one point in the movie, they deal with a bomb, which it's not a spoiler because the idea is told at the beginning. they're going to plant a bomb to cause a terrorist action. Well, in the process of doing this, they do a testing of the of the items that they're going to use. And it causes like the cartoon explosion where the hair gets pushed back and you get like the black all over the face from it. Well, the thing is, one of them starts laughing in a really interesting way, and many people say that this is a nod to the Beavis and Butthead TV series that came out the year prior, in 1993. I question this and think it's more of the cartoon route in general, not just specified to that one particular area. But like I said earlier, this was the last time that Leslie Nielsen would play Frank Drebin, a role he had played for 12 years. This is also, though, the only film where it's not called The Naked Gun, but instead just Naked Gun. There is no "the" in it. McDonald's, or one of the other places that was promoting the movie, however, made the mistake and actually left "the" in it. Another thing about this movie is that Courtney Cox, Morgan Fairchild, and Shannon Doherty all have a brief cameo in this movie. Though I didn't see it, according to what I looked up, Courtney Cox's name does not show up in the credits as one of the names, either as a nominee or unnamed nominee, anything like that. She does not show up in it. Also, but the credits do include an entry with the name Bull for a position, and his position was Chief Sitting. That's actually a very cute joke I give them. And if you don't get it, read your history books. Or you really should have paid attention better. And now for my rating. Better in terms of comedy than both previous films. The gags were done more timely, and which made the movie better. And it still had points where it seemed to be long, but it was more easygoing than the previous two. Almost like watching the original Airplane or some of the other films that I actually enjoy a lot more, because it doesn't feel like it's got a stopping point where, oh, we're going to stop the action here and then pick it up, and you got to get used to it all over again. The jokes, yes, they were aged still, but they were aged, but they were not horrible. They were timed with the scenes, and they fit in to their spot correctly. The only thing I can actually fault the movie for, like I said, other than was that it was long. And it's definitely the movie I would recommend of the Naked Gun series, franchise movie-wise. But I do recommend all three if you want to do like a binge watching. The first two are on Netflix at the moment, and I'm doing this from the U.S. area, so if you're checking somewhere else and don't see it, this could be the reason why. Two are, like I said, the first two films are on Netflix. The third one is on the Tubi app, Tubi movie app. And like I said, all three together make a good binge watching or like marathon type deal. But if you only pick one, I recommend the second or third one, but particularly the third one. So let me know your thoughts on the Naked Gun series, if you watched it, or um, what you thought of this video, and let me know what you'd like for an upcoming video. Because I do read the because I want to know your thoughts and would like to be able to give credit to somebody else for the video idea. Because I do not skip out on that. Also, I said I'm just trying to I'm trying to do something that can make people happy, and know what people like makes it easier to find it. So, till next time.